our guest speaker has joined us in the meeting. Welcome, Dr. Pando, welcome. We can see you.
Thank you. I'm struggling a bit with getting my technology properly positioned.
Right.
So if you will just allow me to be a bit old at the moment, and I'll have sorted it out right just now.
Yes, just now we can give you a bit of a few minutes, 2 minutes or so, just to shift it around so that you are in a good position.
Because I want a better connection. I'll log off and come back right now. My apology.
Thank you, Doctor. We are all yours. We are waiting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome, colleagues. Welcome to SAAPAM Limpopo chapter seminar. We are grateful for your presence as we wait for our guest speaker to get reconnected with us. We are happy to have you here, and I will just go through the program once she's back, just to give you an idea of how the evening will be structured. We'll just wait a little bit for Dr. Naledi Pando to join us again. She's putting her system in order and her camera and everything so that she looks as nice as I do. So we'll just wait for a few minutes, colleagues. As you join, switch off your mics. We do not want to hear the family politics and the pots in the houses, in the households, as we wait for our guest speaker. Then we'll be starting shortly, colleagues. Thank you so much for your time.
I'm now properly connected.
Yes. All right. There you are. There you are. We can see you. We can see you very well, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And even your lighting is good and the background is good.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much. Perfect. Now we can get started. Colleagues, good evening, and a very cold evening for that matter. And thank you so much for coming and joining SAAPAM Limpopo chapter seminar tonight. And my name is Professor Mangolo Litoko. I'm attached to the University of Limpopo, but I'm also a SAAPAM Limpopo Deputy Secretary. So I'll be the driver for tonight's session. Colleagues, I just wanna quickly take you through. Our program is very short. We are going to have an opening and welcome by Prof. Munjetsi, our Limpopo chapter chairperson. Then the purpose of the seminar will be given by Prof. Tanyani Madzivandila from University of Limpopo. We'll have introduction of the guest speaker by Dr. Madikana Mkhokong. Deputy Chair from Office of the Premier, Limpopo, and then we'll have our guest speaker who will be also introduced. An introduction of the panelists. We have got 3 panelists with us. They'll be introduced. Then after the guest speaker has delivered her lecture, then we'll be able to then have the panelists engage the guest speaker. Then after that, then we'll have the audience also to engage the guest speaker. Then we get a vote of thanks, then we close. We hope that we'll finish at 8:10 because we are 10 minutes a bit behind time, but it's not a train smash. We are putting ourselves in good order. So to start with, we are going to have Prof. Harry Munjezi, the SAAPAM Limpopo chapter chairperson attached to the University of Venda, to open and welcome our guest speaker and of course all our guests who are here. We have got 135 people logged into this platform. We have got others on Facebook. We have got others on YouTube. So we request that our speakers, whenever you speak, if possible, if you are in a good shape and in a good space, you put on your camera for the people on YouTube and the people on other spaces to be able to see you. So if you are planning to speak, please put yourself in good order because we have got Facebook and we have got YouTube and people are watching from there. So Prof. Munjezi, our Limpopo chapter chairperson, can we kindly have you to welcome and open this session? Prof. Munjezi, I can't see you. There you are. And you are in good order. Thank you. Unmute your mic, Prof. We can see you speaking. Unmute your mic. Okay. We still can hear you, Prof. Unmute your mic.
Are you able to hear me now?
Perfect, Prof. You are audible.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much, Professor Litoko, the program director. I welcome the former minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor, our guest speaker, who has agreed to grace us and come and talk about this topic that everyone wants to hear her voice regarding this topic of the effect of the relationship between South Africa and the USA, but the effect on the economy, the effect on politics, the effect on international relations. So we want to hear her voice, and we are happy that she indeed has agreed to grace us to come and talk to us. But I also want to thank the team that I work with from the SAAPAM Limpopo, Professor Maziwandira, Professor Litoko, Professor Mkonza, Dr. Mkokong, that we were together when we were organizing this event. And we're gonna continue to do this, to talk about that which affect us on a day-to-day basis. You remember last time we met on a platform like this, we're talking about gender-based violence. And yeah, I hear there's someone who has not muted the mic. So we were talking last time about gender-based violence because it affects us all. So today we chose this very important topic, which we know that you are going to enjoy, and also basically it's going to evoke your emotions, where fortunately, you are going to have an opportunity to engage the former minister as well as the three panelists who are also going to also assist in engaging in this hot topic. Thank you very much. I also see the president of SAAPAM is here, Professor Hutas Oshai. I also saw the executive director, Professor John Molepo, is here. Also saw other board members, Dr. Pillay, Mr. Joseph Mudau. Those are the ones that I've seen so far, but surely there are others that are also here. We acknowledge you, the national board members, who also acknowledge those that are coming from the province, but also from our 3 universities in the province. We welcome you from the University of Limpopo, from China University of Technology, and those coming from the University of Venda. But not only from those 3, we can see here that we have got across the board. We have got people from all over South Africa, all other universities, from UKZN to UCT to everywhere else, and including those that comes from our public service and our students. We thank you very much, and you are welcome. And thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, our Chairperson, Prof. Munjetsi, for that warm welcome. Colleagues, as you join the session, 2 critical rules to observe. Switch off your cameras. We will only have cameras of the people who are on the floor. Switch off your cameras so that, because for some people, their internet can't take if all of us were to put on our cameras on. So we switch off our cameras and we also mute our mics. Then as we take the stage, we switch on our mics so that the people on Facebook and YouTube can see us. So that is how we're going to be working as we go along. Moving on with our program, we are going to invite Prof. Tanyani Madzivandila from University of Limpopo. He's our treasurer for SAAPAM Limpopo chapter. He's going to give us the purpose of the seminar. Why are we here? Why are we 200 plus people here to listen to our former minister, Dr. Naledi Pandor, this evening? Prof. Madzivandila, I give the platform to you. I can't see you, but I know once your camera gets on, I'll see you. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you to colleagues who were able to join this session. My role is very easy. It's just to explain the purpose of us being here. What we have done as SAAPAM Limpopo chapter is that gearing to the conference, national conference that we're going to have in September, we are having different sessions talking about different contemporary issues and current issues which are affecting people, communities, our government, and also international related issues. So the topic that we decided to bring along for this discussion, of course, it affects us in many ways. We have seen the interactions that are there between South Africa and the US and how that already started having repercussions in terms of the diplomatic relationship between the 2 countries. So we saw it fit that we have this session where we can discuss, come up with solutions, come up with recommendations in terms of way forward. And we saw our former minister as a suitable person, as she has worked in this space for a long time. We also invited panelists who are working in that space and who have a lot of experience in order that they can be able to respond to the minister, and then we can have a way forward out of this. So the purpose of this is to have a discussion, trying to look at this issue and see where are we going in terms of moving forward as a country, but also looking at South Africa, USA relationship in relation to the G20 that we are going to host in November. What are the implications of the relationship between USA and South Africa in terms of the diplomatic relations that the two countries have, and what is it that will be the future of such relationship? So thanks a lot, colleagues, for joining. We are going to have a good session, and I hope you'll enjoy. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful introduction, and also the purpose of why we are here today. It's really a great day for us to be here. So we move on with our program. We are now going to have the introduction of the guest speaker. It's going to be done by Dr. Madikana Mkhokong. She is the Deputy Chair for SAAPAM Limpopo chapter, and she is working at the Office of the Premier in Limpopo. I know, Doctor, that you were in a family setup where you can't have your camera. Please feel free. You are going to be exempted because you explained your situation. Dr. Mkhokong, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Program Director. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. My role tonight is quite simple and straightforward, and yet very significant. It gives me a great pleasure and privilege to have been tasked with the responsibility to introduce our guest speaker, a remarkable woman, a woman of virtue, whose hard work and dedication to the discourse has been observed over the years. Our guest speaker for tonight is someone who's fit for purpose, as already indicated by colleagues, the likes of Professor Madzibandila, that she has been in the space for quite some time. So she is indeed fit for purpose. And I'm delighted to introduce her to everyone. I'm going to introduce Dr. Grace Naledi Madisa Pando, who was born on the 7th of December, 1953. Dr. Pando is South Africa's former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation from 2019 to 2024. She was part of the ministerial team of the Cabinet of South Africa that initiated the genocide case against Israel and at the International Court of Justice. Dr. Pando was appointed the new chair of the Nelson Mandela Foundation from the 1st of October 2024. She will be the third person to hold the position since Nelson Mandela Foundation was established in 1999. Dr. Pando became a Member of Parliament in 1994 and has amassed impressive experience in positions of public office, including Deputy Chief Whip of the ANC in the National Assembly from 1995 to 1998. She served as the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces in 1998 and its Chairperson from 1999 to 2004. Dr. Pando's experience in education policy planning served her country in the following portfolios: as a Minister of Education from 2009 to 2004, the Minister of Science and Technology from the year 2009 to 2012, the Minister of Home Affairs from 2012 to 2014, the Minister of Science and Technology from 2014 to 2018, and the Minister of Higher Education and Training from 2018 to 2019, and subsequent to that as the Minister of DECO. Dr. Pando holds a PhD from the University of Pretoria and has been awarded honorary doctorates by the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Stellenbosch University, the University of Lisbon in Portugal, and University College Dublin in Ireland. Additionally, on the 28th of February 2025, she was appointed as an honorary professor in education by the University of Pretoria. Upon being awarded Germany's highest federal award, the Grand Cross of Merit, the German ambassador to South Africa, Walter Lindner, said, and I quote, "Pandor is for us a symbol of the new South Africa, modern, innovative, dedicated to scientific progress, and also outstanding female leadership," close quote. Dr. Pandor is also a married woman. She's married to Mr. Sharif Pandor, and they have 4 children together and 7 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give Dr. Pandor a warm welcome. Let us give her our virtual clap of hands and applaud her as she ascends the virtual platform. Thank you very much. You are welcome, Doctor. We are in your mercy. Thank you, Chairperson.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you, colleagues, for those virtual clippings. And we're missing ululations, Dr. Naledi Pandor. But it's okay. All right. Over to you. Over to you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Letoko, Program Director, Professor Munzezi, Chair of SAAPAM, academic staff joining us this evening, students, guests, and fellow panelists. Good evening to you all. I would like to begin by thanking Professor Munzezi for inviting me to speak on this important topic, particularly at a time when the globe is experiencing its most challenging geopolitical moments, I believe, of this and the past century. Before addressing the topic of this evening, I wish to briefly refer to several key issues that I believe are relevant for complete reflection on our theme. I think, Program Director, that my age and the long time in politics has made history a very important part of my public discourse. And so I always wish to ensure that when I speak on a matter, the underpinnings, the foundational matters are referred to, so that we perhaps have a full understanding of the issues that I would hopefully raise. So let me begin by firstly referring to the fact that our country, South Africa, achieved democracy by way of a negotiated settlement following decades of oppression and dispossession of all the Black people of South Africa. The composition of the Black population in our country, as determined under apartheid, includes indigenous Africans, indigenous colored people, and indigenous Indians who result from ancestors that were indentured laborers brought into South Africa to labor in the cane fields of Natal. As you are all aware, the apartheid state developed laws and practices that segmented these Black groupings and created division among them through differentiated racial policies. This differentiation impacts on relations in South Africa today and continues to influence our ability to achieve inclusive transformation. The greatest impact, perhaps, is that we have not, as formerly oppressed people, been able to determine joint action
Dr. Pando, we have lost you. I can see you are muted there. Good.
You are. All right.
There you are.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I hope. So a second key issue that I wish to refer to is that our negotiated settlement permitted much of the apartheid institutional form to remain in place, although stripped of much of its racist power. We adopted a progressive constitution that allows for a Bill of Rights, which confirmed equal rights for all of us and permitted policies and actions to advance genuine equality. So we have then that contrast of the segmented Black grouping that had been divided, that was experiencing apartheid policy very differentially, and we've not yet managed to unify on a joint platform of transformation. Alongside that, we have political power, but we do not as yet have the absolute means to achieve the desire for equality elaborated in our Bill of Rights. A third important factor is the newly elected government of post-apartheid South Africa entered the stage of international relations determined to advance positive goals of diplomacy, such as seeking peace, friendship, and security, as initially articulated in the Freedom Charter of 1955. The new government also planned to make a difference in Africa, given the historic role of solidarity that the Organization of African Unity had played in our struggle for freedom. Most African countries had followed on this commitment by implementing OAU-agreed sanctions and boycotts. So, a strong international leaning toward a better Africa was a rational response by the government and people of South Africa. Fourth, while the ANC-led government held to those Freedom Charter values, it encountered a global community that was strongly leaning at the time toward unipolarity and neglectful of the aspirations reflected in the content of the United Nations Charter, as well as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We had at the time the demise of the Soviet Union and the breakup of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And this had altered multilateralism and begun the entrenching of a unipolar world with the United States of America as the fulcrum. For the United States of America, the danger remained, as always, communism and Russia, and to a degree, China. United Nations practices, especially in the United Nations Security Council, cemented these emerging divisions, and the site of ideological struggle became the chamber of the Security Council, and voting in the Council and in the General Assembly on United Nations resolutions. So the premier multilateral body, whose remit was to unite the globe, became the space where the greatest divisions were evident. The use of the veto by the so-called P5, the permanent five, had become the clearest expression of global relations and an indicator of how countries viewed key global issues. So we would get a sense of global thinking, largely from the voting action of the P5 in the United Nations Security Council. And increasingly over time, we as so-called sovereign and equal member states of the United Nations began to matter less and less. Fifth key issue, once the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, the hegemony of the United States of America was almost set in stone, and it exercised immense influence on global affairs, joined, of course, by Europe, largely united because of the seeking security against a rampant and feared Russia and at the time Soviet Union, but crumbling as a united force. Sixth key factor, the People's Republic of China had begun pursuing growth and development, and there was beginning to impact on the world as a political and manufacturing economic force. China's technological and economic progress added to the looming tensions of a post-Soviet Union global influence competitiveness. So among these emerging powers, and even a Russia in decline, they developed a competitiveness for relations with the rest of the world. And we became subject of this competition. Post-apartheid South Africa entered this complex terrain in 1994, determined to establish wide-ranging global partnerships and to use these to assist in executing its new responsibility of transforming South Africa and building a prosperous and democratic society. It, of course, also was aware of the established solidarity links which had existed with the then Soviet Union, with China before economic growth, with Cuba, and with the Bandung East Asia links. So these bonds of solidarity had existed long in the period of struggle and were part of the underlying rationale for how South Africa, post-apartheid, built and pursued its international relations. I believe these underlying issues are key to understanding our international relations and perhaps key to opening up understanding of the dichotomous nature of our relationship with the United States of America, as Professor put it when he wrote to me. Our Constitution indicates that we will seek to be good, engaged global citizens, and that we will hold on to and observe United Nations Charter prescripts. So when we sign UN conventions, it is with a determination that we will execute them or attempt our best to give practical effect to them. We also agreed to promote peace and friendship and the development interests of South Africa and Africa. In addition, we indicated that our foreign relations would be utilized to advance our transformation goals of inclusive economic growth and Black empowerment. We have never been hesitant or shy about committing to Black empowerment. It has always been part of our search for cooperation and global partnerships. Our relations with the United States of America are therefore based on these values. It is important to note that our relations with the United States of America as the liberation forces of South Africa have deep and long-standing roots. It's not a relationship that we've just established now, it is over a century old. Some of our leaders, such as Charlotte Matlege, Pixley Kaisaka Seme, Z.K. Matthews, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and many others of our leaders studied and worked in the United States of America and formed long-standing associations with the civil rights movement in America and drew on some of the lessons of civil protest for our own struggle in South Africa. The African National Congress, under the leadership of Oliver Tambo, established strong links with civil society organizations in America and secured their activism in the sanctions and boycott solidarity campaigns. One of the religious leaders who played an important role, some of you might recall, was the Reverend Leon Sullivan, a Black Baptist minister from Philadelphia, who utilized his position as a board member of the General Motors Corporation to encourage disinvestment from apartheid South Africa by General Motors, and who developed what came to be called the Sullivan Principles as an equal opportunity employment guide for American business in South Africa. So if you talk to the first crop of managers in the private sector who were Black in the mid to late 80s, they will reflect for you the impact of the Sullivan Principles on the private sector companies that were of international origin suddenly becoming active due to the prescripts of the Sullivan Principles. Also important was the role of Franklin Thomas of the Ford Foundation, who initiated a historic study on apartheid South Africa, which was seminal in recording United States policy toward South Africa, and thus alerting civil society in the United States of America of the degree to which certain public and private institutions in America were advancing apartheid interests rather than promoting the equality, which was the public policy remit of America. While civil society supported anti-apartheid activities, we all know the American government and its legislatures were determined in their support for white apartheid South Africa. I think, Program Director, one of our errors, perhaps as post-apartheid South Africa, has been insufficient maintenance of those civil society links, particularly among African Americans in the United States of America. And what this has done is it has affected our ability to lobby and influence broader society in America. Party political links have also been difficult, given the reality of two parties in the United States of America, Democrats and the Republicans, that share many ideological perspectives and thus make it very difficult to create durable, positive relations. But today, what are our relations? Our relations are largely economic, with elements of cultural, educational, and health collaboration until recent policy actions of President Trump. The recent election of a second Trump presidency and the existence of a majority Republican-led legislature has severely impacted these long-established relations. Although it is important to point out that relations had cooled even under a Democratic Party-led government of Joe Biden. Our countries have enjoyed strong economic relations in the 30 years of democracy. South Africa is America's largest trading partner in Africa. America is our third largest trading partner globally. We have over 600 American companies operating in South Africa, employing over 400,000 people. Up to 2025, South Africa benefited from various trade agreements, including the Generalized System of Preferences and the African Growth and Opportunity Act, under which we are eligible for preferential benefits and for special tariffs for textiles and other goods. From time to time, these benefits, and increasingly now, have been the subject of disputes and threats. For example, America threatened to exclude us from AGOA in 2015 due to a proposed bill on private security companies in South Africa. And more recently, America has threatened to exclude South Africa from AGOA due to South Africa's policy relations on a range of issues, including our relations with China and Iran and our support for freedom for the people of Palestine. What we see is that international relations are used in a carrot and stick approach by America. Stand with us and we will have positive relations. Differ with us and we will use our economic might to punish you. These attitudes have intensified in the reality of an emerging multipolar world in which China, India, and East Asia enjoy increased economic prowess and influence. So we should, in our analysis, not neglect reference to the fact that America is feeling threatened by the displacement occurring through the advances of other regions and countries in the world. Furthermore, while the USA has been largely a leader in technology and innovation, China investment in science and innovation has gained it a leading role in innovation and has advanced Chinese scientific achievement. These are all areas in which there was exclusive dominance by the United States of America, and suddenly displacement is occurring. China has further led in developing positive cooperation with various African countries, and in particular with the African Union. So this has caused increased friction between Africa and America. This includes irritation at the growing influence of BRICS, particularly the expansion of BRICS and the subjects being discussed within BRICS and the influence of South Africa within that formation. Nonetheless, Chairperson, our country, South Africa, remains, we believe, a country of strategic interest and necessity to America. It is the most industrialized African country. It produces and holds significant mineral resources that are necessary for American industry. It is a modern, leading democracy and is a beacon for many as a non-racial democracy. Even in the context of the misrepresentations about white genocide in South Africa, the intelligence sources of the United States of America know this is untrue and know that our work is toward a truly non-racial society and that there's no genocide in this country. We have incurred displeasure most recently due to the case that South Africa boldly brought against Israel at the International Court of Justice. And of course, due to the irresponsible and misleading claims of AfriForum that there is genocide against white farmers in South Africa. It is clear to the most kind observer that the antipathy towards South Africa is linked to issues beyond these false claims. And thus it is imperative that South Africa continues to maintain the ability to advance and promote independent foreign policy. It must be absolutely determined, our country, that we will retain relations as we choose to establish them, and not on the basis of what we are told to establish. It is also necessary that South Africa, for world security, promotes multilateralism and a multipolar world. We cannot not have one or two countries being the center of the world and accumulating so much political authority and belief in themselves that they seek to direct all of us into their own foreign policy perspectives. So while I do appreciate and support the efforts of our government, that we must continue to have positive relations with the United States of America, I do insist that we need to talk much more about what kind of country we aspire to be as South Africa, what values and principles lie in our constitution, and what it is we seek to achieve as we advance our goals of transformation. The matter of broader ownership of the economy is an important one for our country. And of course, we know that the United States of America has failed to advance equality, given its history of holding slaves for over a century. We must not allow ourselves to be as at fault as the United States of America is in transforming our society to achieve greater equality. So the dichotomy must be that South Africa pursues transformation and the key objectives of our constitution, while simultaneously seeking to build good and strong relations with the United States of America. Chairperson, I pause at that point, and I hope that I have responded to Professor Munzezi's directive. Thank you very much.
Good. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pando. Thank you so much. I'm waiting to see our reactions, colleagues. Let's clap our virtual hands. Let's clap our virtual hands. This was a powerful presentation. I really picked up a lot, but it is not my space to start the discussion, because we do have discussants, stroke panelists, who are going to start the engagement as our experts. Thereafter, we'll now have a session and we open it to all our guests. So Dr. Mohokong will introduce briefly our three panelists. Then immediately they will start engaging Dr. Pando and also putting forth their own thinking around the topic, around the presentation. Dr. Mohokong, are you ready for us?
Thank you, Madam Program Director. Yes, I'm ready. Good evening once more, colleagues. I'm going to introduce our panelists. Our three panelists are what I regard as seasoned scholars in the discourse of international relations. And I'm going to start by introducing Professor Lebogang Lerodi. She's in the Department of Cultural and Political Studies in the University of Limpopo, my alma mater. And her speciality is in international relations. And I'm going to move to introduce Ms. Lebone Kganyago, who's the chairperson of Expert South Africa. Ms. Lebone Kganyago holds her Master of Arts in International Relations from Russia. And if my memory serves me well, her honors was also obtained from Russia. The third panelist, chairperson and colleagues, is Professor Ricky Mukonza, who's attached to the Tshwane University of Technology. He's an associate professor there, an associate professor in public affairs. Professor Ricky Mukonza is also a seasoned scholar in the discourse, and I'm delighted to say he has also produced some of us as his candidates. Professor Ricky Mukonza is also the secretary of SAAPAM Limpopo chapter and a deputy chairperson of the Limpopo Research Forum. Chairperson, these are our panelists for tonight, and they have made immense contributions to the scholarship and the discourse of international relations. And I have no doubt that they are going to engage the presentation accordingly. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let us welcome our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mkhokong. We are going just to facilitate our engagement. We are going to start with Prof. Lehodi. Then we come to Ms. Lebone Kganyago, and then we come to Prof. Mukonza. In your comments and your engagement, then you'll be able to see if you have to come back again. We'll look at the time, but I must say, Dr. Naledi Pandor stuck to the time that we have allocated to her. So we still have an hour to go. So we'll see how our panelists engage our guest speaker. Then we'll take it from there. But in that order, we can start with Prof. Lehodi, and then Ms. Kganyago, and then Prof. will close the discussions. Then we'll see, depending on our time, whether we move on to the floor to all of us who are here. And please raise up your hands, and also don't hesitate to type something in the chat box if you think we are not responding fast enough, because I'll be able to help Dr. Pandor if something is put on the chat box also, just to make it faster and more efficient. So our panelists, over to you in that order that I've suggested. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Letoko, and good evening, colleagues. Maybe first I should thank Dr. Naledi for such a thought-provoking presentation on the dichotomy of SA-US relations. And because, or rather in the interest of time.
Sorry, Prof, are you in a position to be on camera? We said we have got people on Facebook and YouTube. Unless you are not in the right shape, it's all right, but that would help us a lot. For everyone who will be speaking, we have got people on Facebook and YouTube, and they also rely a lot on what they see. Thank you so much, Prof. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Prof. Letoko. As I was saying, thank you, Dr. Naledi, for such a thought-provoking conversation on something that is very timely, which is, the SA-US relations and its effect on politics, economy, and international relations. I'm going to, in the interest of time, not talk about, the history of, how the US-SA relations came about, but rather talk at least about, Trump's second tenure as the president of the US. And I think that is what really ignited people to follow, the ongoing, discourse on US-SA relations. And I'm saying this because this is something that is currently, dominating by both scholarly and public discourse. And of course, because of the developments that happened prior, Trump's second tenure, and after that, I think, there's been a lot of, contestations in terms of, US-SA relations. But for my presentation really today, I wanted to also talk about how, Trump's second tenure as the president has really enacted a very alarming narrative of South Africa. And for me, I think that narrative really is also pushed by South Africa's close relations with Russia. We know that any state that is not pro the US, the US regards that particular state as a threat, be it the Russia threat or the China threat. And, particularly for the conversation that we're having today, South Africa is a threat, right? And I'm saying this, or I'm using threat here, drawing from, the works of scholars who talk about the securitization theory. So for me, I think it is really evident, in trying to understand US-SA relations today, to also think about who is really driving this, narrative of, South Africa as a threat, right? And I think it is the Western media itself, and it is done in such a way of trying to delegitimize South Africa's agency as well as global standing. Dr. Naledi did talk about, South Africa's foreign policy immediately after South Africa got admitted into the international community after, apartheid. South Africa was sanctioned, and how amongst South Africa's core pillars and values in its foreign policy includes that of multilateralism, right? And of recent, I think that the kind of contestations that we are seeing between, US-SA relations and how that gets to affect its politics and international relations is really because of, South Africa's close ties with global South states, right? And I think there's a scholar who writes on US politics who talk about how the US has always been a country that if you are not for them and their allies, you are simply, against them. And when they do that throughout history, we've seen how the US would get to target those respective countries who seem to not be aligned or does not submit to, their core values in global politics. And I'm saying this thinking of, quite recently how, the US would even go to the extent of wanting to interfere in the domestic politics of even South Africa. We've seen even with the allegations of genocide, and despite not having any credible, evidence to support those claims, I think, the US really is simply trying to retain its hegemony in global politics. So as I did say earlier on the US, the recent approach to South Africa of wanting to promote it as, or promoting the SA threat narrative by interfering either in its domestic politics or in IR simply by, we've seen recently, not showing up at the G20 summit. All of those are really, ways of, the US trying to retain its hegemony, but also wanting to showcase its coercive diplomacy, as we've seen it throughout the recent past. I think Naledi also, Dr. Naledi also spoke about, the halting of US aid in February by the US, and how all of that gets to, make us question, how the future of SA-US relations, and even the calls by, or the calls for US Congress to review or suspend South Africa's eligibility in AGOA, or to renew it in November. All of those, I think, there are some of the things that we really get to think about when we try to make sense of US-SA relations. So I think as one, South Africa's second largest trading partner, having South Africa rely also on aid from the US, all of those things get to impact, not only politics or economy, but also international relations in general. So really, as my short or my introduction in talking about this conversation, I think for me, the US's ways of engaging with South Africa recently is just a way of it wanting us to question South Africa's agency in global politics, and also question, the strategic interest of South Africa, especially in the global South, in its relations with BRICS member states, and simply wanting to delegitimize, the global role, of South Africa as we've seen it throughout or since 1994. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. This was a very thought-provoking analysis of Dr. Naledi Pando's speech, plus your own observation in the field as an expert, I would say. Let us hear what Ms. Khanyago from Expert South Africa has to say to us this evening. Lebone, are you there?
Yes, I am here, Professor.
Thank you so much. You can put on, there you are.
Thank you very much. Okay, so allow me to first say thank you to Dr. Mokgokong for the introduction, and to say good evening to the program director, good evening to Dr. Naledi Pando, to our esteemed guests, to the audience at large, and to my fellow panelists. So to Dr. Mokgokong, I'd also just like to make an addition to the introduction that you made. But before I do that, allow me to highlight what my presentation today is going to be mainly focused on. So my presentation today is going to be mainly focused on expats. And expats are South Africans who are based abroad, who have left South Africa for different opportunities or to find greener pastures. So Dr. Naledi Pando, thank you for highlighting the effects of the USA-SA relations and how it affects global diplomacy and our economy. But I would also like to add on to how the effects of the USA and SA relations and the different systems that the USA has and South Africa has, and how those different systems affect South African citizens and American citizens. So furthermore, for those who do not know what Expert South Africa is, Expert South Africa is a South African-focused platform that sheds light on the achievements and experiences of South Africans across the globe, with the mission of creating an everlasting bridge that connects South Africans to the rest of the world. As Dr. Mokgokong said, I have a master's degree in international relations, which I acquired from the Russian Federation. Upon returning to South Africa, I had hoped that I would be able to find a permanent job or fully reintegrate into the South African system. But not being able to do so, I decided to create Expert South Africa so that South Africans abroad could create opportunities that are available within their host countries. Through Expert South Africa, I have been able to engage with South Africans in plus minus 35 countries, one of them being the United States of America. So with my presentation, I also have two questions that I'm going to be posing towards Dr. Naledi Pandor. However, before I do so, Dr. Pandor, allow me to share 3 stories with you. And these 3 stories are of 2 South African ladies who currently reside in the United States and an American lady who currently resides in South Africa. So the first story is of Precious, who is originally from Cape Town and currently residing in Colorado. Now, Precious has decided that she would like to reside in the United States because of the opportunities that the United States offer her. She's currently pursuing a career in tech, and she believes that in America she would be able to find companies that offer a high-paying salary for entry-level jobs in comparison to South Africa. Now, in staying in America, she also believes that America is much more safer for her and she would be able to raise her family, and that the opportunities that America offers her would allow her to pivot not only into a better career path, but also to pivot a lifestyle that does not allow her to get pressurized into being at her peak after the age of 35. The second story is of Ribotile, who's originally from Limpopo. Ribotile has an academic qualification which she acquired from the United States of America. Upon completing her studies, she returned to South Africa. In returning to South Africa, she had also hoped that she would find a permanent job and utilize the skills that she acquired in America. However, in South Africa, she was faced with many challenges. And one of these challenges was that with the jobs that she was applying for, she was met with comments such as, you are overqualified, you are too expensive, or we cannot simply afford you. And these were comments that were made by employers. And because of these challenges that she faced, she then decided that she would move to America simply because she believed that South Africans with international qualifications are not well accommodated within the country. She is doing well in America at the moment, and she's able to provide for her father, who's currently retired in Limpopo. She does wish to return to South Africa. However, she hopes that the South African system would have improved before she does so. And she hopes that South Africans, or rather, she hopes that international qualifications are not deemed as expensive. Finally, I have a story about Ashley. Ashley is originally from the United States of America, and she currently resides in Johannesburg, South Africa. Ashley moved to South Africa to live a better life, and she moved to South Africa to find better opportunities compared to the opportunities that she found that are provided in America. So she believes that some Americans face a lot of hardships and that some Americans are not fully favored by the American system. So in moving to South Africa, she also hopes that she explores and learns how to engage with the African communities and to find more sustainability and to further bridge a gap and to further bridge opportunities that allow Americans to find better jobs on the African continent. So with the stories that I have just shared with you, Dr. Naledi Pandor, my question to you is, my first question, I have 2 questions for you. My first question is, with the limited reintegration and immigration policies or programs that are implemented in South Africa, how do we encourage South Africans living abroad to contribute towards the economic development of the country, even though some feel that the same economy does not favor them in comparison to the benefits that those who leave their country are able to receive within South Africa. My second question is, how do we ensure that there are still collaborative efforts between government, businesses, and civil societies to create a compelling future for South Africans, for investors coming from different countries such as America, China, or Russia, and to ensure that South Africa remains not only an attractive destination for expats, but so that fellow South Africans can deem South Africa as the place to stay? Thank you, Program Director.
Wow, that's a PhD candidate. Prof. Lekhodi, those questions are for you for your study later. Okay, I hope that Dr. Naledi Pandor has noted down what Ms. Khanyago was saying, and it's very interesting for you to have decided to start this organization, Expert South Africa, and all the stories that you are starting to come forth with. It's quite interesting. Prof. Mukonza, we are gonna come to you, and then you can give us your own contribution in terms of the topic. Prof. Mukonza? Oh, good.
Thank you very much, Program Director. To our esteemed guest, Dr. Pando, allow me to write on the protocol that has already been established. Program Director, it's very difficult to speak after such a luminary who possesses both experience and the intellectual power when it comes to the subject that we are discussing. Ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me that it was just a time that was jealous, but Dr. Pando really, took us down, the memory lane, and gave us very important, knowledge about the issue of international relations. I really want to find my entry point by looking at the title that we are discussing. And I would want to go to the use of the word dichotomy by those that coined the title. And my research led me to a definition that talks about something that is characterized by both. When you talk about dichotomy within the space of international relations, you are talking about relations that are characterized by both cooperation and contradiction. You are talking about relations that are characterized by, pursuit of mutual interest, but at the same time, strategic divergence show up. So you can't really make up how the relations are. And this is an apt description of the relations between South Africa. And I enjoyed the history that we got about these relations from before before South Africa got into the democratic era, before 1994, because if you study that history well, you'd find that at different junctures, the relations were, either of cooperation or showed contradictions. I will not go into that history. I also made it part of my presentation, but Dr. Pando did a good job in chronicling how these relations have over time changed. But what I want to share with colleagues, probably maybe just one aspect in the post-apartheid era. One of there are many issues that cause South Africa's relations with U.S. to sour. One of the issues, Dr. Pando, you would call the position of South Africa on the Iraqi war. South Africa took a principled decision to condemn the war, and that did not go well with the American government. So it was one issue that really caused discomfort in the American government. Obviously, the other issues you've pointed them, South Africa's position on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, South Africa's BRICS membership, and so forth and so forth. So those are some of the issues that have affected the relations between South Africa and the United States. But I want to come in here and share my insights on what I think has shaped the relations. I think students of international relations would know about the theory of realism and how countries on the international in international politics try by all means to pursue their national interests. And realism, which was advocated by the likes of your Thomas Hobbes, your Nicole Machiavelli. It talks about how countries are egoistic in their nature, and they act in ways that promote self-interest, and we see it with for example, the United States of America, the second coming of Donald Trump. We see how it uses tariffs to reclaim its space and pursue self-interest, reestablish its dominance and its hegemony in terms of economic power. We also see South Africa trying to pursue self-interest by trying to, in a different way, by trying to reset the relations between itself and the United States of America. I know some may differ with me in the approach in whether South Africa used the right approach. Others have even argued that South Africa was not the South African government, led by the president, was not even supposed to go to the United States because it kind of, presented them as being sheep, as sheep being led to the slaughter. We saw the drama that took place. We saw the drama that took place and how it portrayed South Africa in the hands of the United States of America. But we also see constructivism, where South Africa is trying to preserve itself and its foreign policy as being anti-imperialist. So South Africa is trying to preserve its identity. So I looked at these two theories and I felt these theories help us to understand and unpack some of the things that we are observing in terms of the relations between the United States and South Africa. So if you look at realism, you can see how the two countries are trying to act or have been trying to act in a manner that advances their interest, their national interest. But a question as I go to my conclusion, a question to Dr. Pando. I wanted to. I think there are two that are coming around what I've just been saying. The issue of individual leaders. To what extent does it impact on relations between countries? because we look at the relations, the cordial relations that existed between South Africa and the United States during the Madiba Clinton era, and how they projected themselves as a convergence of democracy, or the democratic convergence, as scholars would say. So that's my question. And now you look at the second coming of Donald Trump, and you look at the engagement that took place between him and President Ramaphosa. If you followed closely how President Ramaphosa approached that visit, you would find that he had studied the personality of Donald Trump. Him being an egoistic person who acts and probably thinks everything revolves around him. President Ramaphosa kept reminding him of some of the good things that he did. For example, how he assisted South Africa during the COVID period, and how he assisted with vaccine. And you could see President Ramaphosa did not arrogate that to the United States of America, but he got it to be personal, because those that have studied Trump as a political leader argue that to him it's about him. If it's not about him, then it is nothing. So I want to find your view about leaders and how they tend to influence relations amongst different countries. I think that is the question that but let me go on to conclude. I think with what has happened, which is, and I'm sure the audience would want us to talk about this, what is likely to happen going forward? We saw what happened at the White House, and we saw how South Africa went there with the intention of resetting relations. We saw the drama, but I propose there are about 4 scenarios, program director. The first one is South Africa could choose to realign its foreign policy, and if South Africa realigns its foreign policy, it would also mean that it has to amend some of its policies, domestic policies, for example, the issue of land reform, and ensure that they become friendly to those that are the powers that be, if I may use it. And if South Africa chooses this scenario, chances are high that it will gain opportunities economically, and it will probably safeguard AGOA. The second scenario is its continued approach of strategic ambiguity. So South Africa could play or could pursue a non-alignment, the non-alignment route, but this approach could risk it in terms of an economic fallout with America and its allies. And obviously, it's likely to be marginalized diplomatically. The third scenario that I see is that South Africa could drift towards the BRICS and the global south, and which may mean moving away from America and the rest of the Western powers. This so South Africa, this means that South Africa would deepen its relations with Russia and with China and other powers in the global south. But then, as I said, it would risk it from souring its relations with America and the other Western powers, and also it may lead to it not being, having access to Western markets. The last proposal, the last scenario that is there, Chairperson, is what may be termed the strategic imperative. This is where South Africa strikes a balance, a strategic balance between pursuing its own interests, maintaining its domestic policies that advance agendas such as transformation, but equally avoid ideologically grandstanding, which may end up jeopardizing its relations with America and the Western powers. So those are my contributions, Program Director and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Prof. Mokonza and our other panelists. We have got exactly 30 minutes. Now we'll have to be strategic on how we spend our time. I can see that we do have questions on the chat box. But before we go to those questions, I want to quickly give Dr. Naledi Pandor a chance to maybe not necessarily respond, maybe yes, respond, and also engage a little bit in terms of what the panelists have presented to us. Maybe there were also some questions from Ms. Khanyago, if there are answers anyway. In academia, we say not all questions are worth answering. Others we park and then we'll see them later. So Dr. Naledi Pandor, I'll give a chance to you. Then we'll quickly look at what is in the chat box. I can see there's a hand already. Is the first hand from a colleague. I think it's in the war, if I can't see well, but let's just give Dr. Naledi a chance first. Then we'll go to, I saw just a few questions on the chat box. Then we go to the, to all of us, to all the guests.
Thank you very much, Professor Letoko, and thank you to the panelists. I think that each of the panelists has really made excellent contributions and improved, I hope, my own contribution this evening. I strongly agree with Professor Lekhodi that we are seeing an antipathy toward a increasingly powerful and impactful global South, and there is nervousness about the development of a concrete, coherent global South agenda. So there is a fear of a counterweight to the hegemony that she described so well. So I do agree with her that the situation is alarming, and I don't think we as South Africa should take the situation lightly. We know before the war against Iraq that there was this sudden attention on Iraq. There were the lies of weapons of mass destruction, and soon after we had the arms, the conflict, the attacks on Iraq. We don't want to see that happening to our country. We know what has been happening with respect to Iran, the sanctions that are not UN permitted sanctions, unilateral sanctions by the United States and so on. So we should be worried about the emergent narrative and ensure that the strategies that we do adopt don't place us in a more hazardous position, because we do have an economy that is brittle and that does rely to a great deal on international investment. So we need to be aware of all of these imperatives as we set about our relations. I think Professor Lekhodi is right that we must be very, very resolute about ensuring that we can determine our own affairs, particularly our domestic affairs, and cannot be mandated by another sovereign nation as to how we must conduct our own national policy and even our foreign relations. I thought, Chair, that Ms. Lebone Khanyago really presented a very intriguing set of issues, and I think the work she's doing in expat South Africa is really important work, and I wish her well in it. I'm sure the organization will certainly grow. Having been somewhat of an internationalist myself growing up outside my country, I do support her goal of building greater bridges between South Africa and the global community. And I think this is really a fantastic endeavor and a very creative entrepreneurial direction through the work that she has done, and is an outcome of her studies of politics and international relations. I found the three stories very intriguing, and what I really liked was the juxtaposition between South Africans seeking opportunity elsewhere and then expatriates from other parts of the world coming to seek opportunity in South Africa. I have met several, for example, African Americans who have come to live in South Africa. And when they talk to me, they say that for several of them, coming to South Africa was the first time as Black people they felt at home. They felt they know where they are and they could be comfortable and could aspire to something better. So I think the integration efforts in South Africa need to be intensified. Ms. Khanyago would know that our experience of apartheid and the way in which we were locked in to our country and somewhat locked in to our struggle made us particularly insular. And thus we do need a greater opening up. And international experience creates that for us. So greater international exposure, greater integration and interest in attracting entrepreneurs from all parts of the world, linking in to people-oriented activity is very, very important. We haven't spoken about cultural cooperation and people-to-people exchanges. These are ongoing and are a necessary part of what we should do. I think we also should encourage South African expats in other parts of the world to retain links with South Africa and to help us to learn from them about what works and what doesn't work. Encourage them to come and share their skills and experience with our country. And of course, we, through the regulatory system of our country, make our country more accessible for investment. And we need to continue to work hard at that. But of course, the conduct of America shows us how you do not conduct integration, how you do not conduct international relations. The current banning of several African countries from having access to US visas is just a shocking step. The deportation of migrants, even those who are legal in the country, purely by virtue of their color or origin, is something that no UN member state should be doing. So we are seeing how we must not do things. I think we can improve on some of our international links and collaboration. And I believe expats, South Africa, can really teach us much more. With respect to Professor Mukonza, again, a really insightful contribution, and I've learned a great deal from him. I like the theory of realism, and I do believe in the pursuit of national interest. I'm perhaps more, Professor Mukonza, steered toward Hobbes rather than Machiavelli, because I do think your self-interest must have a humane element to it and must recognize that values and principles are necessary. This is why internationalism as a South African political characteristic is so important and is something that we must never lose, even as we pursue our national interests. I don't think we should conduct ourselves and use tariffs as a weapon. We could do so, but we should be strategic about it, and it should not be for purposes of bullying. It should be for purposes of improving our economic standing and supporting our growth ambitions. I don't believe we went to the United States like sheep to slaughter. If we had, our president would have responded to those false narratives that President Trump placed before him. But he conducted himself extremely strategically, I felt, and didn't get into the situation President Zelensky found himself in, where he essentially had to storm out of the Oval Office and the White House. I thought our team, particularly the president in particular, understood the context and had prepared himself to address it. I think some of our delegation was somewhat problematic, but it's not my purpose to comment on that. But I definitely think the sheep to slaughter concept doesn't quite fit what we observed. And then now on the question of leaders, individual leaders, and their impact on relations, I believe Nelson Mandela and former President Bill Clinton were leaders who had a great deal, you would recall, of political experience. Over many years, Bill Clinton had been a senator, he'd been a representative for his state, so he had built a political foundation that really assisted him in managing the affairs of the world and interactions with world leaders successfully. He didn't have an ego that suggested that only his country is important. He understood that relations among leaders of the world are significant for maintaining peace and security. So what is likely to happen now? I think we must continue, as I said, to pursue the search for improved relations between ourselves and the United States of America. And I believe our government is doing that. We must strengthen our role in BRICS. And I think we should help BRICS to define itself more cogently as a political organ of the South, appropriating positive values and enhancing exchange and trade among the current 10 BRICS nations, which will probably grow to even more. But I do think relations with the United States of America as a very large economy in the world are important for us to maintain. So, Professor Mukonza, a mix perhaps between strategic ambiguity and strategic imperatives would be what I would propose we look toward. And I firmly believe in foreign policy independence. It's a strong, strong belief of my own, and we must develop the capacity to execute our foreign policy on the global stage effectively and develop the ability to persuade others to follow and understand our approach as South Africa. Thank you very much, Program Director.
All right. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pando. That was good. You know what I'm seeing? I see Ndubo Gudumi has had the hand raised, and that's the only one I see now. So I would say, let me give, I'm not sure whether it's he or she a chance. We'll see from the camera. Then Dr. Naledi will answer that one. Then we can go to the chats. There's quite a lot on the chats, but let's give a colleague. The hand has been up for long. Yes, it's Ndubo Gudumi. Over to you.
Thank you, Program Director. It's he.
Yes.
You will forgive me, my camera is a bit problematic, but I'll just hit straight to ask the question to Dr. Pando. I think Dr. Pando running to the Oval Office trying to resolve a conflict that was created through propaganda and lies was a clear indication on our side in South Africa that we have got a problem. And part of our problem is that I think we are not managing our affairs in the country effectively. And part of those problems is that our economic affairs, we are not managing them more effectively. And that, as a result, lead us into over-relying into foreign countries for intervention and assistance. There's nothing wrong with relying on building foreign relationships. It assists us, but the over-reliance on those foreign countries, it's what is the problem. Then my question then now becomes that, how can then South Africa strengthen its economic independence and reduce over-reliance on foreign assistance for interventions for some of these problems that we create for ourselves? Thanks.
Thank you very much. We can give an opportunity to Dr. Pandor to respond.
Thank you very much to Mr. Kudumi for the question. Firstly, I should say to him that I think describing the visit to the United States as running to the Oval Office really is not an appropriate description. I do think he's right. We do have economic challenges, as do many countries. But I also want to remind him that I indicated that America is our third largest trading partner. It has been displaced by China, and our largest trading partner is the African continent. So we have shifted significantly, the fourth largest being Europe. There have been significant shifts in our economic partnerships and in the manner in which we generate income as South Africa. But of course, we have to do much more. We have to trade much more with India. I don't think we trade sufficiently with them, but they do have a lot of restrictions in terms of entry of exports. We need to get them to open up much more. We need to increase our trade with exported goods with China. We need to introduce new economic sectors that are robust and long-term in South Africa, among them being green energy, attention to sustainability. These offer massive job and entrepreneurship opportunities. So yes, indeed, there are challenges, but the key is, as you say, to reduce reliance. And you do so, as has been said many times, by becoming more productive. So through industrialization, through building manufacturing capacity, and I think most significantly, through value addition to your own mineral resources, rather than the current African over-reliance on extraction of minerals, export overseas, and purchase expensively of value-added goods. So this is a change that we need to see. And to make that change, we need bold, brave leaders who will make the decision about how Africa will deal with its mineral resources and about value addition and the proportions linked to that for the African continent. Until we make that decision, as OPEC countries did many years ago, we will continue to lag behind. But we were not running to the Oval Office. We went to visit the government of the United States of America for a clear purpose of representing ourselves and our interests and clarifying the misrepresentations that had been caused by our own citizens. And you would have seen following the meetings that it was American media and social media that were correcting the misrepresentations that were placed before the delegation of South Africa. So it was a necessary, perhaps irritation, let me say, a necessary irritation. And I believe that it has caused somewhat of a pause on this onslaught that we were seeing against South Africa. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandor. We have got questions on the chat. There are quite many, but I would quickly just read through them and we'll see how many we can answer. But the first one was answered about the sheepish way that we went to the Oval House, as somebody said here. So the second one is, can African countries explore opportunities to collaborate and leverage their collective resources to build strong economic capacity through adopting the South-to-South cooperation? That's the first question. It's quite long. Is our shaky relationship with the US influenced by our stance on the Israel-Palestine war? How much impact has the racist AfriForum misinformation had on these relations? What about BRICS Association and de-dollarization? That's quite a heavy question there. And another one, what are the strategic concessions that should be made by both countries in order to rebuild trust, which will require nuanced diplomacy, mutual respect, and willingness to engage beyond zero-sum frameworks? And I think that will be the last one. There could be more, but we have got 10 minutes to go. In any second coming, there's often ambivalence, some to that of Christ and his followers, that any time can be the end of so many troubles that awaits mortal man. We don't know when, as DRC and Somalia didn't know when they're going to be barred and sanctioned. Who are we, and which position should the country and AU play in this second coming? Wow. There's more, Dr. Pando, but I think from what I've read, there could be a few points that you can take from the questions. There are quite many.
Yeah, let me try. Firstly, the first one, African countries are currently cooperating and strengthening that cooperation. All the guests present here, who I assume are either academics or senior scholars in the university, that in the university system, they know that we've recently adopted the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, which positions Africa very, very differently strategically from where we have been as African countries that don't trade with each other sufficiently. And what I actually like about South Africa's approach is we have begun to pilot free trade between ourselves and several other of the bigger economies on the African continent to see together how we can make the AFCFTA work for Africa, so that we can illustrate to the rest of the continent through the AU that we can make this ambition of intra-African trade successful. So I think what we need to do is see a concrete agreement in policy terms between our ministers of minerals on the African continent on how, as Africa, we deal with the subject of strategic minerals and that matter I mentioned of beneficiation or value addition. We need to agree a policy on this, adopt it through the AU, make it firmly the instrument of legislative action on the continent, so that we put to bed this exploitation of our resources and the corruption associated with it. So we have begun the cooperation. I think we see it significantly, particularly in the SADC region, but in other regions of the continent as well. However, given the vast wealth in Africa and given selfish interests outside of Africa, we know that this is hazardous terrain and that we have to elect leaders who are firm in their understanding that they have to put Africa's progress as the primary objective of their political work. I think, yes, indeed. The case that we took to the ICJ, indicating our belief that genocide was underway in the Palestinian occupied territories, is probably a strong part of the antipathy that we see towards South Africa. You would note that everybody refused to accept this concept of genocide when we first took the case to the ICJ. Today, many other governments are alleging that they believe there is a likelihood of genocide, even those who opposed the case that South Africa brought, because we can all see what is unfolding before our very eyes. Where in the world would it be acceptable that countries are silent when one state, Israel, decides to deny a whole territory of people, over 2 million, access to water, energy, and basic food? How can the world be tolerant of such? So indeed, given that Israel is regarded by America as its strongest strategic partner, clearly it has a very negative attitude toward the step that South Africa has taken. With respect to AfriForum, it's not the first time AfriForum has been dishonest about South Africa to the United States of America. Not just AfriForum, but other leaders of political organizations in South Africa. You would recall the famous letter of Ms. Helen Ziller to the United States government, asking them to intervene or pay attention to our elections, as there was a belief by the DA then that the elections would not be free and fair in South Africa. And so calling on a foreign country to actually interfere in our elections was absolutely shocking step for any political leader to have taken. And I often am surprised at how tolerant the people of South Africa are to such abuses of our nation. I think that I've spoken about what we should do, and I believe our country is taking some of these steps. On BRICS, I've mentioned that BRICS is discussing a range of new agenda items. It has expanded, it will continue to expand, and BRICS does not firmly use the term de-dollarization. It speaks about international trade in own currencies. And so this is what the BRICS ministers of finance and central bank governors are looking at. And already we've had some practice on use of own currency, on trade between the BRICS nations. Finally, on the second coming, I'm not a theologian, and it's difficult for me to speak about this, but as I said, we need to be very cautious about the attacks on South Africa, because we've seen this before with respect to Iraq, to Iran, and it's a very dangerous context. And we must make sure we make every effort to protect ourselves, to restore relations, and have broad global understanding of the position of South Africa. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naledi. And I saw teams sending a warning that we've got 5 minutes left. 2 minutes now, it's 2 minutes to 8. Otherwise, it's going to cut us. So on my vote of thanks, I would just like to thank Dr. Naledi Pandor. And I can see our SAAPAM president, Professor Shai, is also with us, and many of our very, very important guests tonight, both on Facebook, on YouTube, and on this platform. SAAPAM Limpopo chapter cannot thank you enough, colleagues, for your time in the evening and having spent time even asking questions and giving all your inputs and even, questions that you have put here on the chat. In research, I think all of us, we know that the questions keep us pondering further in terms of, wow, what could have been, what could be the way forward, We have got research papers in these questions already and everything else. So from on behalf of the Limpopo chapter, SAAPAM Limpopo chapter, Dr. Naledi Pandor, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We thank all the guests who have been here, the SAAPAM president and Limpopo chapter chairperson and the entire committee. Well done. And we can have a wonderful evening. Our panelists, you were perfect match if you were to be matched with anyone. Good night to everyone. See you again. Thank you for attending. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pando. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone. Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.